Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and I know what you're thinking, 2 videos in one day. We don't do that, and that is true. In the history of this channel, I have never released 2 videos on the same day, but we're making an exemption because Castlevania the Arcade is ready to go. You're going to be able to play this game from start to finish with controls, mouse clicking, Wiimote, whatever it is you want to use, and that's going to be via Demule Shooter. Now there are a little bit of caveats here, so please don't just click off this video in 45 seconds and start grabbing files. You will be slightly confused when you get there. But today is the day everyone can play Castlevania the Arcade on your PC at home. Now I do want you to be aware of one thing. There is still a bug with the sound effects, and they are not currently loading in. Now that a lot more people are going to be playing this, we can have a lot more people taking a look and helping us bug fix. So if you are playing this and you are a member of my Discord, please report any bugs you see. That way the people that are working on this can take those reports in and work on a better experience for everybody. It's super important that you do tell us if you find an issue, because we do need to know about it. Secondarily, there is a level loading issue, but it is very sporadic. A few people on their PCs have issues where some levels do not load in, but for the majority of the tests it seems like it is perfectly fine. We are still looking at that, but it's working for a large enough percentage of people that we are able to share this with you tonight, and everyone can go out there and start playing. But again, please do send those reports in and leave me a comment down below if you plan on playing it tonight, because I would be curious who is going to check this out. But in the description below, I will show you where you need to get these stuff, and you can find everything else on archive.org by searching around if you are a member of my Discord. But the boss battle right here with the Harpy, using mouse controls, feels absolutely perfect. Just make sure you swing with momentum, and the left mouse click is going to be your sub weapon. And the number 1 key on your keyboard, that's going to be how you start the game, and this should go to free play by default. But as you see here, as we get into the next sub boss battle here with the Minotaur, everything is amazing in this game. Graphically, it's been tested on AMD as well as Nvidia, and there's been no issues whatsoever, so it seems like the graphics do transpose over perfectly fine whatever graphics card you're using. But of course, there's so many of them out there. If you do have an issue, do leave me a comment. That way I know what we are looking at, because there are a lot of variables dealing with this versus something like a console game where you're dealing with one base hardware. Also, I'm going to show you right now what you need to do as far as the INI file is concerned. You don't need to edit it in Excel. You can use WordPad if you just open it up, and you're going to change the following settings. In the WordPad here, I'm going to move it over for you. You're going to see 2 entries, Emulate IO and Emulate Sensor. By default, those are both going to say false. You need to put them both to true, or else it will not boot the game, because it's going to look for the actual IO hardware for the whip. So just make sure you transfer those both over, and all of the other settings you can play around as is. But that is going to get you into the game. If it doesn't work, just make sure you go back and check to make sure that you wrote true on both of them, because without that INI file edit, and it's technically not an INI, it's an Excel sheet, this game will not boot. But otherwise, that's all you need to do to get into the game proper. And the files with Demule Shooter down below are going to have a text file inside of them. Just read that, and it'll give you the directions on how you need to launch the hooker application along with the main game executable, and make sure you run those both as administrator. That's very important. If you don't run them as an administrator, 9 out of 10 times it is just not going to work. But using this tool right here and going into the next stage, you're going to see that everything is working again control wise perfectly. Now I am playing this on full screen on my monitor. It takes any resolution whatsoever. You can set it to windowed as well from that INI file, but you're going to swipe back and forth with your mouse, your Wiimote, whatever you want, and you do need to give it some momentum. If you go too soft, it's not going to register that input. You really do need to move your hand like you are whipping with a whip in your hand. Don't go too gentle, it's just not going to work. But you'll see here, coming into the next boss battle, things are pretty much loading exactly as expected. But if you do run up against that level loading bug, leave me a comment down below and tell me what your system specs are. CPU, GPU, operating system, and how much RAM you have. But I will say, even though the sound effects aren't quite there yet, the soundtrack's amazing. Listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. Just sounds absolutely incredible, and don't worry, we'll be working on those sound effects to make sure they come in. What it seems to be is some sort of character issue with the Japanese language and the embedded version of XP this game would run on original hardware. It seems to not be completing the call to actually get that data loaded in, and that's also the problem it seems like with some of the level loading, but we didn't want to wait any longer because this is playable for the primarily larger audience that's going to be out there. But of course, if you run into any problems, join my Discord, server link down below, and people will be starting to help you. Now remember, this is launching now, so there's not going to be a lot of help. We're going to be learning a lot of details about this game in the next couple days and weeks, so we might not have an answer for you tonight, but don't worry, we will get there for sure. But I just absolutely love that we're able to do something like this. This is a really special arcade game, not just because it's based on Castlevania, but because if you're not near a major market city, odds are there's not going to be a unit within 1,000 miles of you. And you will see here sometimes it does stop on that loading. Just hit escape and relaunch the game and you should be fine. But moving back to the Harpy battle right here, it is just so much fun. This flying around, all of the whipping, all of the controls transpose so good across two windows. And when you do get something like a Wiimote set up and use it as a virtual pointing device, and you're really just swinging that arm back and forth with a sensor, it really does feel like you are using a whip. I guess you could tie a shoestring to the end of your Wiimote if you really wanted to get that effect. But it's just such a fun game. But I will tell you right now, it is a very difficult game, and of course you're not going to be putting real quarters into this. It's just hit one to keep playing, but it's going to really hand you your ass. But that's the fun part. I can't wait to see 1cc attempts of this game and high scores now that everyone's going to be able to play it. It's going to be absolutely spectacular. Now do remember the way that this modification works. Your system may throw up an exemption because it is going to be basically real-time injecting data into the application, and sometimes Windows can get irritated with that. And as I said in the original video, do your due diligence, check the files. I'm not responsible for them, but I am using them on my system, if you know what I mean. But it's one of those things. Sometimes Windows does get a little bit irritated when there is an application that can do some real-time RAM code injecting, but it seems to be perfectly fine, obviously, wink wink nudge nudge. And I will say that once you get to the death battle here, be prepared to die a lot because he's going to 100% destroy you. But I'm so happy we're able to bring something like this to you today. It is so exciting just to be able to share a game that most people have never been able to play before. I can't wait to hear people's opinions, both good and bad, and leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think of the game itself. But big thanks to Argon LaFoe for working up this patch. He's done an absolutely spectacular job, and I can't thank him enough. And I can't thank all the rest of you guys, the community, my Discord, everyone that helps me do things like this, because I do not do it in a vacuum, but I am so happy to be able to do it for everyone. Anytime something like this comes across my desk, of course, you're going to be able to share in it too. And big thanks to Dremcast for being involved as well. He's an awesome guy, and hopefully we can do some fun stuff in the future. But like I said, death here is no joke in this game. This might be the hardest death battle I've ever done outside of Rondo of Blood the first time I played it. Death wants you to die, but unlike Rondo where you have to continue the stage, all you do is press 1 here and you can pick up where you left off. But as of today, Castlevania the Arcade is playable for anyone that has a Windows machine, and I am sure you're going to find bugs. This is not a bug-free release, it's not a 1.0. Consider this a 0.1 release. We're going to learn a lot about how the game works, a lot about how things need to be improved, but the most important thing is you can play Castlevania the Arcade today, and you don't have to spend any money to do it. This isn't a Patreon paid patch or anything like that. If you could do me a favor and give me a sub, that's all I ask for. But short of that, I'm going to die because death is anger, and we are done. Bye-bye.